So good afternoon, everybody, and I want to thank Lieutenant Jackson, and I want to thank her as a representative of the 37,000 people who work for us in D.C. government, who are at your service. And I also especially want to thank D.C. residents, all the D.C. residents who came out to vote yesterday. Give them a big round of applause. And I also spent some time last evening in my remarks congratulating all the winners in our races last night, from our Congresswoman, the chairman of the council, as well as the next Attorney General for the District of Columbia, and all of the council members who were successful in their races. We've all, I know that I did, went through an interview process with DC residents, mine for nearly 8 months this time, and I learned a great deal. I heard their challenges, their concerns, their best wishes, their big ideas. We were grateful to advance from the primary, and even more grateful that I have the opportunity to serve for a third term as mayor of the most dynamic city in the world. I want to especially acknowledge members of my team who have stuck together through unprecedented times. None of us could have expected COVID, Donald Trump, a racial unreckoning, an economic crisis, but I have to say how proud I am that they've all stepped up to the plate. I am grateful to DC residents for putting their trust in me and their trust in our team. We spent, as I recall last night, in 2014, we made promises for a fresh start. In 2018, promises to ensure that we were doing everything possible that DC residents got a fair shot. And now this time, we are charged with leading the city's comeback. We are highly energized and focused, and we're also very focused on how to make DC a city that we can all be proud of, a city where we expand our democracy, no matter what happens in the Congress, where we're focused on ending gun violence that is destroying families and upending communities. But we're also focused on reimagining our downtown in our corridors, investing in our middle class, and getting young people back on track, and continuing to plan to make us the most resilient city that we can. So we've learned a lot in doing this work together, and we are going to continue to focus on the big ideas that get us there. And that is really the focus of what this next period is, and that's the transition to our third term. We're going to be asking our team, we're going to be asking DC residents, we're going to be asking our stakeholders to make sure that as we ask ourselves the big questions that I just laid out, that we're also exploring the big ideas. One big idea that we have been proud of, that early in my tenure, we made the promise to end family homelessness, to close DC General, and to build short-term family housing all across the city. And because the idea was big and the energy was strong and our commitment was relentless, we've been able to do all of those things. The same was true for building a hospital, and the same is true for making sure that we finish some projects that were started and stopped again, but we're able to deliver, like Skyland in Ward 7. So those are the things and the types of ideas that are transformational for people that we will continue to explore. So today I want to announce to everybody where they can go to follow our transition, and that's going to be at together.dc.gov. And we're asking for anybody that has a big idea to submit that big idea. Later in the month, we'll all get together for a summit where we will discuss in person and through various means how you can submit those ideas and work with the leaders who will help us get there. So that's together.dc.gov. And a very big part of what we will be talking about during our transition as well is joining us. There are incredible opportunities in DC government, and now is the time to ask yourself if you want to be a part of our team. We have some really incredible stories of people who have started their careers in DC government or who have spent formative time in DC government. I talked about our big ideas around homelessness. Laura Zeilinger came to DC government working in the city administrator's office back in 2007, and she has been a steadfast leader of DHS since the start of our administration. Tommy Wells even started in DC government, working to make sure the lives of children were better. LaQuandra Nesbitt did two terms around DC government, and we're proud of their service to the city as well. So we will be airing short videos on social media and even on the airwaves to let people in DC and elsewhere know that we want people who like to work a lot. Now, we do like to work a lot here. We do have big ideas, but we're also a government that works with 13 members of the council that can turn a big idea, put it into writing, get it in a budget, get it funded, and get it implemented in one budget cycle. That is what is so exciting about working for DC government. So I have a couple of announcements that I also want to make in addition to together.dc.gov. I will impanel a transition team to help us with this work, focused on people, focused on our big ideas, focused on our organization, and how we on January 2nd will hit the ground running again for our third term. I have tapped two incredible leaders who know DC government inside and out to help me lead this effort. First is Tommy Wells, who is the director of the District Department of the Environment, Energy and the Environment. Tommy has told me that he wants to seek other opportunities. And before I let him go completely, we want him to help lead the transition team. LaQuandra Nesbitt, as I have mentioned, will co-chair with Tommy, and LaQuandra has most recently served as the director of DC Health. So I'm looking forward to them working with our policy team, and our policy team is going to be led by the Assistant City Administrator, Lindsay Parker. And so I want to thank Lindsay for her work. There are going to be several members of our agencies who support the work of the transition team and help us, again, focus on people and big ideas, our organization, and how to hit the ground running on December 2nd. I will also ask members of the community to serve on the transition team. And before you ask me, I haven't completed my calls to them. And so as soon as we do, I will be issuing an announcement about those serving on the transition team. So I also have another very special announcement to make. And I'm always pleased when members of my team who have served with distinction, who have big ideas and energy, have an opportunity to expand their portfolios and their reach into the community. And this woman is one of them, LaToya Foster. Today, I am pleased to name LaToya as the next director of the Office of Cable Television, Film, Music, and Entertainment. Many here will know Latoya when she was on the other side of the camera. And others of us know Latoya from working in DC government. And she, of course, started with me as a press secretary and has been serving as the communications director for the last several years. Latoya will bring to the office incredible energy, a wonderful knowledge of the District of Columbia and its all 8 wards. And she takes with her my complete confidence. So please, once again, acknowledge Latoya Foster. So with that, we can answer a few questions. Directors, you join me if there are any questions? Questions? Yes.
Mayor Bowser, I think you told us that Director Wells is leaving your administration.
I told you he's no longer going to be the director of DOEE.
Okay, so can you tell us when that happens, and have you had any other of your cabinet members tell you that they'll be leaving after this term?
No, I haven't.
Okay, and so when does Director Wells stop being Director Wells, and what's going to happen there? Have you got any thoughts on?
Well, we have, and I should note, and if the team would go back to the schedule of events, I think I missed saying that we're going to have a number of opportunities for people to find out about opportunities in DC government. So you can check our websites where we should have posted the announcement for the DOEE director. Latoya's position will post as well for communications director, and there will be others. I should also mention that part of the work of our transition team will be to sit down with every member of the cabinet in a transition interview process where our cabinet members will be talking about their big ideas, the challenges in their agencies, and how we're going to tackle them in the next 4 years. DOES will conduct job fairs in the coming days. I will also host what I like to call a resume raiser, where it's like a happy hour where you get to talk to officials in our various sectors about opportunities and your skills and your interests. I have found that people within the government and outside of the government come to those hiring events, and they may say, hey, I like to be in DC government, but Mayor, I want to try something else. And so that is an opportunity for them to raise their resume. We will be collecting on the transition website. Well, I think I don't remember what we're calling it, but it's a bank of resumes that don't necessarily attach to an opening, but you are saying that you want to be considered for a position in DC government. So there are opportunities, of course, for appointed positions and for career positions. And finally, you see on the list the DC Government Virtual Job Fair, which we've had a couple this year that have been tremendously successful. Thousands of people have applied, very qualified, and we have been able to make matches with our vacancies. We will present more information in the coming days about the engagement forum that we will host on November 19th. Yes, Tom.
Thank you, Mayor. When did you make the decision on the 2 co-chairs? Then I have a question for Dr. Nesbitt.
When? In the last several weeks. I don't know exactly when.
Okay, not the last few days. Okay, may I ask a question of Dr. Nesbitt?
What is your question?
Dr. Nesbitt, as the head of the Public Health Office in dealing with COVID for the last couple of years, you just loved it when reporters rushed up to you to ask you questions. I'm just wondering why you decided to take this job, which reporters will once again be rushing up to you to ask you questions. If you would speak to the mic.
Sure. Thank you so much, Tom, for the question. I think you remember me saying that a lot as well. I think one of the things that you may know as well is that I love DC. I love DC a lot. I'm not a native to DC. I moved here several years ago, and the mayor mentioned in her opening remarks that I did 2 tours in DC government. Which means I have a tremendous love and passion for the residents of this city. And I have commented on previous occasions that it has been one of the biggest honors of my life and my career to have served in the Bowser administration. And so in my conversations with the mayor and my decision to transition out of DC government, one of the things she said to me was, well, there'll be other opportunities for you to serve as I think of them. So I didn't hesitate when we had a conversation about ways that I could be supportive of her transition and thinking about the district's comeback to be able to be of service in this regard. So any way that I can be supportive of the mayor and in any way that I can serve the residents of the District of Columbia, I'm happy to do so.
And could we also just hear from the other co-chair? Say something quotable.
Well, as the mayor said, I'm not a stranger to DC government. From inside and outside, from the executive or the administration. And, I started as a social worker here in 1985 in child protection. I worked in child protection during a time when our city went broke, when we had the advent of HIV and AIDS, and when we also had crack epidemic, and our city went through a tough time. And so to see our city thrive and to be a part of that is an honor. And again, I have really enjoyed working for our mayor, that where we have been able to do some amazing things, especially at Department of Energy and Environment. And the mayor has been a very great supporter, advocate, and great person to work for. And so with her asking me to do something more was an easy yes.
Martin.
We've been mayor for 8 years. We're going to be mayor for another 4 years. There's a lot of people high up in the government who have served over the course of those 8 years. Some of them have served in multiple capacities. I mean, you have some folks have served double duty as city administrator and also deputy mayor of public safety. Do you think this is a time for you to start that you would look outside to bring in new people that haven't been part of the ship for the last 8 years?
So part of our process, we have and we do have some current vacancies, and we always are looking for people inside and outside of the government. I don't subscribe to the view that you have to go outside to find great people, because we have 37,000 great people who work for us already. In some cases, the best person will be from outside, and I won't hesitate to make those appointments. Yes.
Mayor Bowser, a few questions. One is, what do you hope to do differently with this third term?
Well, I talked already about what I think the big questions are that are facing us. How do we make sure that we are defending and growing our democracy right here? How are we focused on any and all strategies that work to end gun violence in our city? How are we catching our kids up, reimagining our downtown, making sure that we're protecting our middle class, growing the middle class in the district, and looking at all of the things related to health and transportation and sustainability that will help us build a resilient city of the future. So those are a few ways to talk about the work we're going to do.
And Initiative 82 passed overwhelmingly. What are your thoughts on that, and how do you guarantee that the will of the voters won't be overturned this time around?
Well, I think it was an overwhelming vote. I must confess, I know the issue, and I know the issue inside and out, but when I read it on the ballot, I was quite confused by it. So I think there's and what we would be willing to do is partner with industry to facilitate conversations to ensure that there is robust public education around the issue.
And then last question for me for now is on the crime portion, juvenile crime especially. We've had some recent incidents again involving even younger and younger kids. For example, the shooting of the Commanders running back involved a 15-year-old who was 14 at the time of the shooting. He was one of 2 teens arrested. what are you looking at differently in terms of addressing
We're
crime?
looking at everything related to juvenile crime. In fact, yesterday we had a meeting. The city administrator convened a meeting on election day that was a robust discussion from all of our agencies that touch kids about what changes we need right now or what changes we need in the coming days and months. And so we're going to continue those robust conversations. And again, anything and everything that can work, we're going to implement. Yes, Sam.
Yes, Mayor, still on juvenile crime. First, congratulations.
Thank you.
On your victory. Congratulations to Toya. She's the best communications director ever.
Thank you.
But anyway, looking at this issue of kids, I just got a call. There's some shooting involving kids over at Idea Public Charter School. There's a vigil tonight for a 15-year-old who was shot in 7th and N. And then I heard that the rec center at 7th and O, the Kennedy Rec Center, has been closed down since before COVID. How does that happen when you have a situation like this and the city is letting rec centers lie fallow?
I wouldn't reduce the very complicated situation of violent crime among juveniles to the status of Kennedy Rec Center. I think we would be missing a lot of issues. We might be. And as I understand it,
why close a rec center when you got a problem like this? That's the question.
I don't know the specifics around Kennedy Rec Center. As I recall, though, from some emails, I think the hours have been restored at Kennedy Rec Center, but let me get back to you on that. Yes, Michael.
Mayor Bowser, I wanted to ask you about your take on national politics. How do you feel like last night's congressional election shapes the chances of DC making progress on independence issues like parole or the National Guard?
Well, I think we all woke up this morning, the Democrats did, very pleased that the red wave or the wipeout or however you want to call it so far hasn't happened. I think we don't know still what's going to happen in the House or the Senate for that matter. But our approach to governing doesn't change. We have worked with, and I have now worked with 3 different presidents in various iterations of control in the Congress. So we are very straightforward in letting and educating members of the Congress about who we are, who we're not. We pay our own way, we take care of ourselves, and we just need them to stay out of our business. We will continue to push. There's still time for our friends in Congress to advance DC priorities right now. Well, they have control over all 3. We know there's judges at stake, there's federal lands at stake, and of course, a vote on statehood could still happen. So we will continue that push during this period, and should things change, we will approach working with the Congress the way we always have. Delia.
2 questions, Mayor. Initiative 82 and on youth violence, I'll start with that first. I spoke to a coordinator of some of your violence interrupters who said 90% of the young people that they're dealing with suffering from homelessness, substance abuse, and mental health issues. Not certain, though, and not convinced that the city has a plan to actually address those issues and get to the root problem.
Well, I don't know who gave you those statistics, so I'm not going to comment on them.
Have you communicated your plan to the people who are on the ground working to stop the violence on the streets, and what new initiatives or new tactics do you have moving into the next board?
Well, I think I just answered that question, we are very focused on, I don't know what coordinator of a violence interruption you're talking to or talking about. What I'm very focused on them and their part in making sure that they're preventing violence. We're spending millions upon millions of dollars. And one thing that we know is lacking in our approach is coordination among all of the offices. I think, there's been a lot of concern around this kind of bifurcated approach of what the mayor's doing, what the attorney general's doing, and we've got to fix that so that we're not losing the power of our investments in discoordinated efforts. So we will have more to say about that. We're working as we have seen the number of youth involved in shootings and the number of youth who have been victims of shootings. I think Stephanie already mentioned it. If I see a teenager who has been shot, it's more than likely it's a teenager who did it. And so we have to really focus on those young people that we know have been involved in violent crime or victims of violent crime.
Second question about Initiative 82.
Yep.
A lot of business owners, a lot of restaurant owners actually were opposed to Initiative 82. You talked about wanting to rebuild, reimagine downtown DC. Do you anticipate that being a challenge? And what's your pitch to business owners to retain or even recruit more restaurants to come to DC?
Well, we are happy that restaurants are opening in DC every day. Just a couple of days ago, I don't remember, maybe it was Monday, we were in Ward 8 talking about the Food Access Fund that we have funded, where 2 new restaurants are opening in Ward 8, Kitchen Savages and DC Smokehouse. DC City Smokehouse. And so we know that restaurateurs are opening not just in Ward 2 downtown, but they're opening in Ward 7 and 8 in numbers that we haven't seen before. So as I mentioned earlier, I think there's a lot of public education to be done around Initiative 82. In my discussions with people, if you ask, you have 5 restaurants, they had 5 different ways that they were going to approach it. If you ask 5 DC residents what it means, they're not exactly sure of what it means for when they walk into a restaurant. So I think that we have to listen to industry, figure out how they are approaching it, and I don't think it's one single way that they are approaching it, and offer our convening, power to help with public education. Let me get someone who hasn't asked you, Nate.
Mayor, just a technical question first. The transition team co-chairs, are they volunteer roles or are they compensated?
They're volunteer roles.
And also, in terms of any new staff announcement or exits, do you plan any in the next few days, or what should we look out for in terms of timeline for staffing?
I would say that as we are usually, I don't know exactly, let me just say, I have a rule about hiring. I don't hire anybody till I have the exact right person. And so I don't put myself on like a artificial timeline. I do hope, as we did when I started the very first time in 2015, to have as many people in place by the time I'm sworn in on January 2nd. Tom.
Thank you, Mayor. I want you to put on your political hat here. Your victory for a 3rd term was big, but I want to ask you what you think about the DC Council changes. New council members in wards 3 and 5, and a change in the at-large race. Your relationship with council member Alyssa Silverman is pretty well known, but what's your analysis of how will you be dealing with this new council that takes office on January 2nd when you do?
Well, we want all the council members to be engaged with our discussions right now. I have been reaching out to them, the nominees, from the time that they won nomination in June, and now that they are in a transition as well, likely even more. And we're going to continue those conversations. What I like to understand from the council members is what is their agenda? What do you want to get accomplished as a member of the council? What is your focus? I don't know what their committee areas will be, but oftentimes, and I think that, Mary Che has been an example of this. For example, like she had issue areas outside of her committee jurisdiction. She had an agenda. Tommy, when we served together on the council, I knew what his agenda was. Even as a colleague, I knew how to work with him because I knew what was important to him. So what I want to know from all of the members of the council is, what is your agenda and how can we be supportive of it? Likewise, I want them to know what my agenda is, and all of the ways and all of the synergies that there are between the things that we were sitting down here to work on.
The Board of Elections today has said there are 19,000 votes still to be counted. 13,000 of them would like to be counted by the end of the day, 6,000 by tomorrow morning. Doesn't look like it's going to change anything. Would you specifically address the at-large race where Kenyon McDuffie has successfully moved from the Ward 5 seat to the at-large seat?
Well, I said last night that I'm really happy for Kenyon. I think his decision to run was a courageous one. I thought he ran an honorable campaign. And I think he focused on the issues that are important. And I've got to say, I haven't really dug into the numbers, so I don't want to talk specifically about the numbers. But from what I've seen, what I have seen, he has he has a nice path to victory. You saw that path. He had a nice. If you're a citywide elected official, you want to have a path like that to victory. Because what I saw in it is that he did not exclude any ward in his outreach, and he won precincts, I think, in every ward of the city. And he had some really, really big numbers in some wards of the city. And when you're able to cut into an opponent's base as significantly as he did, and you're going to win.
In wards 3 and 6. You haven't mentioned the council member who apparently has lost, Alyssa Silverman. Have any comments on the fact that she lost?
Well, I'd rather talk about the future, because that's what we're here to talk about.
She served on the council since 2015, I think, or before. She's been on there quite a while. No thoughts on her at all? Any family leave or anything?
I think that the voters spoke loud and clear about the direction they want for the independent at-large council seat. And I think for all of us, we can question the voters, all day and all night, but they spoke. And they usually know what they're doing.
Can I run down some issues and whether Alyssa Silverman's loss affects the calculus of it? So, like football stadium, Kenyon McDuffie probably, I'm not sure, but I'm assuming he's more supportive of a hypothetical football stadium. Does that change the calculus at all for you and getting a deal emerging from the council maybe?
As you know, I approach every issue with the council fresh, and so we believe strongly that a lot of the issues that have been raised are slowly but surely being addressed. So I don't know exactly how to answer that question, other than to say we would take to the council what we thought was best for the district.
Are you more optimistic for a football stadium to be built then?
Not based on this race, based on some other news.
The team being sold, potentially?
I think, yes.
Can I ask about economic development too? Any changes you predict with, Kenyon McDuffie, who is a sort of a leader on the economic development front?
As Phil likes to tell me, I'm no longer on the council, so I don't get to comment on committees. But I think...
Aside from committee, leadership, just like economic development issues in general, do you have any thoughts on him staying on the council?
Tax increases.
I think that he has demonstrated a balanced approach to dealing with how we get development. And let's be clear about what it means to get development. That means more housing, more grocery stores, more jobs, more tax revenue, more opportunities, more investment in DC public schools, more investment in the human services, better transportation infrastructure. So it's all in there together. And I do think it's important to have balance on the council when you are considering how you're bringing your city back, which is going to take and require the need to attract more employers and more jobs. So I think that the council member McDuffie has demonstrated a willingness to be balanced and to listen and not to villainize people who create jobs in our community. Yes, sir.
How are you bracing for what looks like a Republican-controlled House, at least, that might want to come in and sort of just question some of your policies and score some points with their criticism of the direction you've taken the city over the years that they might not agree with?
It doesn't matter what they think. It matters what DC residents think. And we will do with them what we've always done, is tell them who we are. We take care of ourselves, we create our own laws, and we need them to stay out of our business. And until we get statehood, we will continue to be very forthright in those discussions.
Do you anticipate more fireworks, I guess, on the Hill from people trying to score points against you or some of your appointees? Or
I don't really know what to anticipate. First of all, they haven't won yet, and so the votes are still being counted. And if you had asked me the same question yesterday, I'd have been like, oh gosh, yes, it's going to be terrible. But now, like, even if they do get the majority, it will be a soft one. It'll be a soft one. And our voters, what I asked DC residents leading up to this election was to stick with us and to vote. Because if they do try to haul me up there and score points, they don't usually. But if they do it mostly on Twitter or whatever. If they do, we know that DC residents will be prepared to have my back. All right, I'll take a few more. Yes.
Congratulations, Madam
Thank you.
Mayor. While I respect Dr. Nesbitt and certainly Director Wells, I have to say that if you're talking about a new start, you're starting with old people. People who've been around. So how do you persuade people that in fact you are trying to have a fresh start and that your agenda isn't going to be the same old thing that we've been seeing for the last 4 or 8 years?
Well, Janetta, fair question, but I didn't say that we're going to have a fresh start.
Nope.
I said that in 2015. What I said was we're going to build on our big successes, recognizing that we still have challenges. And the reason why I chose Tommy and LaQuandra is because they know DC government. And sometimes when you bring people from the outside, you spend more time getting them getting to know what you're talking about and less time talking on how you can make changes to make things better. So that's why I made that decision. But I also wanted people that were slightly removed. And I think that's important. They have other outstanding qualities as well. But I did want people who knew the government. Transition periods, I have somebody will tell me how many days this one is. My first one was, I think, 54 days. So you're doing a lot of things, including community outreach that is robust, making recommendations to the mayor, going in 54 days. And so while this isn't like a new administration where, you know, we're starting completely fresh, we have to hire a whole new team, we have to meet stakeholders, like we're not doing that, but we will spend that time really saying, could we do things better here with the organization? Can we tweak this better here? Which people do we need to recruit? So we are able to do all of those things. And the last thing, the last reason I'll mention is these are two leaders who know me, but they also speak truth to the mayor. And that's that's very important.
Can I follow with one thing? One
Yes.
last thing. You also said that your agenda is gun violence and downtown as two of your priorities, not all of them, but two of them. I'm wondering how you see Dr. Nesbitt and Director Wells within the context of advancing that agenda.
Well, I think that they will help us. Dr. Nesbitt, for example, led one of our earlier committees on Safer, Stronger DC. And a lot of the work that we do around gun violence is rooted in public health. So I actually think she's going to add a lot. As you know, we continue to recruit for a director of the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. So I'm hoping that all of the members of the chairs and members that I recruit to serve on the team will be able to tap their networks, people that they know, so that we're looking all over this DC or the country to hire the best person. And you asked me about bringing back the economy, the downtown, and our corridors. You will recall that Director Wells was very instrumental in how the development of the wharf has happened, and working with big developers, small developers, restaurateurs, and the like, not just on transformative projects like the wharf, but also in neighborhood corridors from Eastern Market to Barracks Row. So he brings a wealth of experience and a substantial network. Again, so if we need to recruit and hire, we're tapping into those networks. Okay, I'll take a couple more, Stephanie, and then Tom.
Mayor Bowser, you also have a new incoming Attorney General. Can you talk about what's being done to ensure that the relationship with this new AG is different than the relationship that we all probably saw with the outgoing one?
Let me just talk about the next AG, who I've gotten to know over the last several months. I didn't know before, but I think that he has, what I'm very impressed by is that when I go at different places across the city, in all 8 wards, I see him there. So he has taken very seriously introducing himself to the city. He has taken seriously listening. He reached out proactively to members of my administration to introduce himself, to ask them how he could be helpful or how they could work together. So I think that he has demonstrated a very proactive style and a willingness to work on what's good for DC.
Are you asking him for anything specifically, or to do anything different specifically?
I am sure over the course of time there will be a lot of specific asks. One big thing that we both recognize we need to work on together is our violence interruption strategies. Tom.
Well, I have a follow-up to that. What is your comment about the 8 years of Carl was seen as Attorney General, who criticized you a lot and now will be leaving in office? What is your thought about his service?
I will leave an analysis of his service to you guys, and I will wish him well.
Thank you.
Thank you.